I am really, again, happy to have a speaker on a subject that we hear very little about, that has to do with our pets who have passed away. Alison is the author of a book about her encounters with pet heaven. So this will be really, really interesting. Help me welcome Alison Tucker.
Good morning, everybody. So nice to be here with you. Really looking forward to sharing this story about finding pets in heaven. You know, all of us have wondered at some time or other what happens to our pets after they leave us. It turns out they have a consciousness, as you all know. Anybody that's owned a pet, you know, every pet's different. They have consciousness just like we do. And when they leave their body, they go to a place that's not very far away, actually. And I found this place by accident. Let me give you a little background. I started out just in this life remembering snippets of past lives. And later on, I ended up in the big battle, as many of you have as well, with cancer. And stage 4, and I really thought I was going to die. Of course, the doctors thought I was going to die too. But I thought I need to share this story because I knew that we don't, you know, our physical body dies, but I knew that we don't die because I had so many past life memories that, you know, told me I can remember actually transitioning into another life, the life between life, from life to life between lives to being born again. So I thought, well, I had to share this. So I did actually start a series. I haven't finished the series yet because it's going to be like 9 books, maybe 11, because now it's up to 11. But the first in the series was the Troubadour, which is this one, and that's a memoir. It's a past life memoir. So as I went ahead, you know, and compiled all these past, actually that's a very interesting story. If anybody's interested in this book, it's about the troubadour Blondel, who I still am, Blondel, and actually his relationship with Richard the Lionheart. And it's got a lot of history in there that's not in the history books. But then I guess we're learning our history books are not particularly accurate at this time. So we're going to find all that out soon, hopefully. But the past life thing led me to a real curiosity about the life between lives, which I had also discovered, but I needed more, a lot more broadening of my understanding of it. And I don't know if you guys are familiar with Dr. Michael Newton. So I started reading Michael Newton's stuff along with a lot of other things. But Michael Newton really got me intrigued with that. And the natural progression from, you know, the life between lives was what, I don't know, I just wondered about astral travel. And I had started kind of just doing natural astral travel back in the 90s a few times, and I'd had some success and it was really fun. But a friend of mine told me some stories about it and scared me to death. And then I didn't try it for 30 years. But as I carried on with the, you know, wondering about astral travel and consciousness leaving the body, I learned about the Monroe Institute. And the Monroe Institute is their headquarters is in Virginia, and they teach out-of-body travel. And I thought, well, that's perfect. I'm going to go learn how to do this properly because, you know, I'm one to try things on my own and actually get often pretty good results. But I thought, no, I really want to get proper training on this and do it safely and learn how to do it just right from the ground up. So I went and I started out with the Gateway course. But finding Pet Heaven, that's the cover of the book here, actually started, I found Pet Heaven before I went to the Monroe Institute, probably just a couple of weeks before that. I was reading one of their instructors' books. Their instructor, one of them is named William Buhlman, does a lot of courses at the Monroe Institute. And I started reading William Buhlman's book, and he actually goes through describing how to actually do the practice of leaving the body. So I'm reading his thing, and I'm trying to follow his instructions in the book. And one night, I actually did. I was sleepless, so I thought, well, let's try to do the out of body thing. And so I did, and I ended up in this black place, and my cat was sitting there, and I'm like, what? This cat had been gone for 30 years. So I'm going to screen share. Anyway, so this guy, the first night that I went out, and I actually did set an intention, but my intention was to find upper heaven. Don't ask me why. I don't know why upper heaven. I just I don't even know what upper heaven was, because I had no idea. I'd never done any real official astral travel. I was just total novice. And I'm in the total blackness, and I come across this guy. And this was a cat of mine that Monty got by the coyotes back in like 1991. And he'd been, for 10 years, this guy kept turning up in my dreams. And I kept looking for him, and he was looking for me. And then after about a decade, it just stopped. And I hadn't seen Monty in a dream in years and years and years and years. And so I'm thinking, I picked him up, and I could feel his fur and held him, and I could feel the skeleton. It was pretty amazing. I was really excited. It was fun. And we had a nice cuddle, and he sat on my lap, and it was like, got to visit for a while. And in a few minutes, two dogs that my beautiful little Bichon Frise and little Becky, they both turned up. And I was like, wow, this is great. And of course, all the time I think I'm dreaming, because I didn't really believe it was true. But I would go out and then come back, and come back, and the animals were still sitting there. And I'm like, okay, cool. So a few minutes later, I come back, and Gigi shows up. Gigi was a horse that I had back in the 70s, and I adopted her from her owners went to Israel and kind of abandoned her, basically. And so I took care of her, but she had a real big chip on her shoulder, and she was very actually depressed that her owner had left her. And I never could kind of, get on the same page as Gigi. I would take her out riding in the mountains, and she'd throw me off and run back and then leave me stranded. And it was let's just say, a kind of a dangerous situation, because she did this on more than one occasion. And so Gigi and I didn't part on good company. So when this horse showed up, I was like, what are you doing here? And I'm not looking for any of the animals, and I certainly wouldn't be looking for you. So anyway, but she actually poked her head through and telepathically apologized. I was like, what? I mean, completely surprised by this horse, because like I said, hadn't thought of her since 1974, not even once. Like I said, we weren't friends, but we are now. It's okay. So anyway, very shortly, so that night, Gigi really made me question my finding, that it was real, because I said I wasn't making it up. I wasn't looking for her by any means. I wouldn't have sought her out. And so she sort of started to convince me that it was a real adventure. And as I said, I could feel the skeleton, the body. It wasn't just like seeing something, you're seeing an image or a vision, but I could see the body. I feel the body and the fur, the soft fur, holding them. It was very stunning to realize that you actually have a physical body in another dimension, basically. That's a new one. But anyway, so I went to the Monroe Institute a couple weeks later, and we began the Gateway course. And the Gateway is a really a nice way to begin the whole thing. Well, it's the only way as far as they're concerned. You have to take the Gateway, and it teaches you how to learn how to essentially you train yourself where it's mind awake, body asleep. And when you get to that state, then you can leave. But this out of body travel is really about being totally conscious when you travel, when you leave your body. And there's no drug, you can't do any drugs or alcohol or anything. It's like you have to be clean, sober, and completely alert, because it's when you get out of body, it's a little difficult to remember things. You get you get cloudy, you think it's a dream, and then you forget right away. So there's this, you program for clarity, awareness, and total recall every time you go out. And when you go out, you also, a big one to learn is that you actually set an intention. And the intention is important. You actually write it down, like on a mental, you can envision an iPad or something where you just literally write it with your handwriting. You can write down your intention and then you go. But as you progress through the level, so mind awake, body asleep is what they call the first level of movement. Where we are sitting here now, would consider it focus 1. And it's just like here and now, this is 1. So when you get to the state of mind awake and body asleep, when you're lying on your bed, that's 10. That's called focus 10. When you get to focus 12, and each time it's like a successive increase in vibrational level. And so it's, you can feel the energy, the vibrations increase as you travel farther and farther out of the body. And so 12 is where you hit an area with expanded consciousness, where all of a sudden you start to feel as you're part of all that is. But, you move on. So the animals I actually found in focus 15, which is one of the closest areas, actual place area to where we are here on Earth. It feels very close. So, it's like you can be there in a split second. Well, you can be anywhere in a split second, actually. But initially, it's one of the first places that you stumble across. So it's also a place of no time. And it's a place where you can go to explore future and past. So you can actually access, I see it as going off. When I go to the right, I'm going to go explore past and future times. When I go to the left, I'm going to pet heaven. It's like they're actually places in this realm, but that's just the way I see it. So I don't know what you would experience if you tried it. But it's like I said, I go to the right, and I can go. Also, creation, you can manifest in focus 15. Focus 15 is a really neat area. It's pretty cool. But all I saw initially, and for a long time, was black, like the cat sitting in the black area. You could feel things, but you couldn't see anything. But moving on to some of the higher levels, you start to get up there. This image is focus 21. It says the beacon lamppost marks the entry to focus 21. And it's like crossing a little bridge, and then all of a sudden you're coming into light and you can see things. And then, so everything has, definition. And we created a place to visit. So in the first gateway course, we only went as far as focus 21. And it was very interesting because it's all of our perceptions are different. One of the exercises that we had to do there was to find a cafe. So supposedly there is a cafe. And it was interesting because the different students had different images of what the cafe was. I saw a little French cafe with striped awnings and tables on a patio and flowers and all that. Somebody else saw something that looked like a Mexican cantina. Somebody else saw something that looked like a disco, and there was a party going on. And it was interesting. So everybody saw something, but their mind perceived it in different ways. And so I've come to the conclusion, and I learned when I was writing, the first of, and really pulling out the past life memories, that what happens is we get our information comes in through our right brain subconscious, and then it transfers into the left brain, and the left brain then turns it into pictures. And one of the big things that they do with the Monroe Institute is they use headsets on, whenever you travel, using HemiSync. And it's 2 different vibratory sounds, one in one ear and one in the other ear. And then what happens is your brain is forced to equalize the sound. And then what it does is it lights up both sides of your brain. So you got left and right brain working. And that's key, because you want that information coming in through your right brain, transferring to your left brain and analyzing, so the left brain is what turns it into pictures. So it's opening up and utilizing your whole brain, which is, we should be doing that all the time, shouldn't we? That's a good thing to have. But there's I had a lot of interesting meetings and met with people that have passed over in this area. And for many months, this was as far as the Gateway course took us. So until I went on to the next courses, this area in 21 was as far as we went. But I did an awful lot of a lot of interesting things in Focus 21 that the book talks about, and meeting people and things that take place there. And I had when I had the cat. So here's Monty again. I wondered whether the animal's consciousness could travel or whether they were stuck in Focus 15. So one night I had set an intention to meet Krishna. This is pretty early on, and I didn't know where Krishna was. That's Yogananda, a very young version of Yogananda in the middle. Yogananda's been my guide for like 30 years, since I started meditating with it and studying the stuff from the SRF. So I picked up Monty going through Focus 15 one night. I didn't even think about it. I just grabbed him. And then I went out looking for Krishna, and I had no idea. I mean, how do you find Krishna? I don't know. Anyway, Yogananda shows up as my guide, and I hadn't had him on any of the other excursions up to that point, but he showed up because he knew that I didn't know where to go. So we ended up way in some astral region far out, which I think was about 35 or maybe even farther than 35. And we sat and had a meeting with Krishna, and the cat just draped himself over the shoulders, and they had a fun time. And it was nothing of great, no great information or anything came from it, but it was a really interesting experience nevertheless. And it was basically to teach me that the animal's consciousness can travel. And so they're free, just like we are. And animals have free will. We all have free will because we're all basically part of the same consciousness. I think there's been a big misunderstanding with, that maybe animals are lesser than we are. Well, they're not lesser, and who knows, in some ways they may be higher consciousness than us, but they've just on a different, not a different path, the same path. I think we're all on the same path. Everybody, every animal, everything is on the same path. It's just at different places on the road there. So when I brought Monty back that night, I dropped him off, and there's Baby and Becky's in there, and the horse shows up, and all the animals from my life had turned up that night when I brought him back to back to Focus 15. But that night, this little yellow bird turned up. And this was a real shock because, frankly, up to this point, I still had wondered, whether I was dreaming, or whether I was just making the whole thing up. But this bird showed up. This bird, I knew immediately who it was. I had forgotten the bird. I wasn't looking for the bird. But the bird was a family pet when I was 3 years old. That's 1957. Okay, that's a long time ago. And that cat ate that bird in 1957. And frankly, I forgot about both of them. They weren't I wasn't looking for them in pet heaven. So this little guy shows up. And then it was really the horse and the bird were the two things that really convinced me that I wasn't making this stuff up, because I totally let's face it, that's more than 60 years ago. I forgot the bird even existed. So there he was in the bird. So now all of them have gone to pet heaven. So where we all go, first off, is a place called Reception. And there's a healing center there. And one of the exercises that we had in the second course, which is Lifeline's course, which is a soul retrieval, which is very interesting in itself. We'll touch on that. They said build a house. They wanted us to build a house in Focus 27. And I'm like, well, why do I need a house? Because I have a great place in Focus 21. But I thought, all right, it was about not needing stuff. But so I went along. I said, okay, I'm just going to do this like they say. I'm going to follow the rules and I'm going to build a house. So this is my house in Focus 27. And now, and eventually, I've moved all the animals. All of my pets are there. So they're all in Focus 27. Though Focus 27 is, I think it's the hub of service. It's where everybody goes. Everybody should go after they leave the body here. They should go to this place. And then there's the healing center, and then there's rest after that. But it's not a normal place to live. But I have a house there, and I guess because that's where I work there basically every night. I'm working, doing the soul retrieval, which is another, moving on. One of the other, I met my mom passing through. My mom passed away in 1994 at 91, and one night I picked. She didn't. I found that a lot of the humans don't know that they can do things. They don't know they can travel. They don't know. They don't know they can have their pets or whatever. So one night I picked her up and took her up to my house in 27. I'd already moved all my animals there, and she looks around. And of course, she knew all my pets from, on my lifetime. She knew them all. And she said, well, have you ever seen Shotzi? And I said, actually, I had seen Shotzi. Shotzi was in that other image earlier. And so the next night I picked Shotzi up and then took her to my mom, and they'd had a nice reunion because they'd been separated for many, many decades. And now they're together. And so the animals can travel. And so I took this, this little dog from 15 to Focus 25 is where most people are. I mean, just about everybody's in Focus 25. And that's called the belief territories. And that's where, basically all religions or all beliefs, and even hell is in the same region. It's not, they're all segmented into, Jews are with Jews, and Protestants with Protestants, and Catholics with Catholics, and Muslims with Muslims. And so they're called consensus environments. You're with like-minded souls. So actually believing is really important, to believe something. If you don't believe anything, then I guess you're going to be in another area where you're with a lot of other people that don't believe things. So, but I think it does help to believe something, have some kind of core beliefs. And I think everybody here wouldn't be here if they didn't believe something. And that is that we are a lot more than our physical body, and that our bodies are vehicles that help us experience this life on 3D Earth, hopefully soon to be 5D. And they carry us through and enable us to have the experiences. So we've learned the pets can travel, but this is like a little picture of what part of the reception area. Often at nights I'll sit and talk to Yogananda, and the dogs come and they sit on my lap, and the dogs are up there, and the dogs are all doing escorting duties. They're all working. They greet souls when they land in there and take them off to healing. And I don't know. I think having the pets there too, a lot of souls coming in are very pleased to just see pets and say hi to them. But this was me. This was when I decided to take Gigi out of 15, because we made up, and I wasn't going to leave her there, and I was feeling guilty. So I brought her in, and it was fun teaching a horse they can fly, because nobody has to walk anywhere. People can fly, horses can fly, cats can fly. I mean, they don't, because it's all consciousness. It's just, you think it and it is. And even with a house, you create it in your mind, and it is. It's instant creation. It's pretty fun. Very, very fun experience, that. So this goes a little bit later. I had, through the Self-Realization Fellowship, I don't know if any of you are familiar with Yogananda or read Autobiography of a Yogi, but his guru was Swami Sri Yukteswar. And Sri Yukteswar basically has a planet, an astral planet out in the the farthest reaches of the astral that you can go. And it's called Hiranyaloka. And I'd always really wanted to go to Hiranyaloka. And I just thought, I don't know how I'm ever going to be able to do that. because the prerequisite to going to Hiranyaloka was you have to be able to leave your body consciously. And I thought, oh, how am I ever going to learn how to do that? Well, it turns out when you learn how to out of body astral travel, you're leaving your body consciously. And so, as soon as I kind of clicked with that idea, I thought, well, I got to find Hiranyaloka. And I did find it, and a little too early the first time, because when I first went in, I saw it, I got there. I know I was at Hiranyaloka, but everything was like collapsing. It was like in a maze, and the visions around collapsed because I wasn't able to hold the energy, because it's like weightlifting for consciousness. You just keep doing it and doing it and doing it, and you build up your consciousness. You get stronger and stronger like a muscle, and then you're able to hold it. But the first time that I got there, that I was able to hold consciousness, I ran into this lady, and this lady, we'll call her the Silver Queen, turned out to be Robert Monroe, who started the Monroe Institute, turned out to be his wife. So she's on Hiranyaloka. I get there, I'm in a little bit of a daze. I just was happy to be there. And she walks up and gives me this great big hug and says, "Oh, I'm so happy to see you." And I went, "Wow." And like she knew me. And I have no idea who this person is. I didn't recognize her. It took me a minute. And then it clicked, literally about, not a minute, about 5 seconds. I went, "Oh my gosh, this lady had been my twin sister 2 lifetimes ago." And it turns out, and she was Robert Monroe's wife, and she's on Hiranyaloka with Shri. I was like, the coincidences. I mean, it's like, honest to God, you can't make this stuff up. It's too, it's out there, I know. But I think if you start, that's why I love to do the astral travel. I mean, the experiences and just the stuff you run into is just mind blowing, one thing after another. But this incident was about, again, teaching me that the animals could travel. She had asked me to bring Baby and Monty up to Hiranyaloka. And I'm thinking, well, okay. So I bring them. And then finally, I can't hold consciousness there for more than about 10 minutes maximum, because of the vibratory rate is so fast. But I left the pets there, and the pets seemed to be fine. And then I went back the next night, and they weren't in the house. But then Monty turned up, and then Baby came back, and they came back on their own. So they were capable of finding their own way back to the house in 27. And so it basically taught me that, they have free will and they can travel just like we can travel. Then I had curiosity, because from the troubadour, this horse was from this life as Jean de Nessel. This horse is named Avril. This was a horse of mine this is in the 1100s. And the horse is, I was shocked. I really didn't expect, I'm thinking that's a long time ago. But, we're really just so not, we don't know what time is. So, when we get out of body and into consciousness, we don't really understand time. And I can't explain it to you because I'm not there yet. One of these days, I hope to figure that out. But, so here's a horse that I brought up to 27 to, but that had lived a life on Earth in the 1100s. So that's pretty incredible stuff. That's just a picture of going up to 27. One night I was in really, really, really high energy, and that's what it felt like. It's just, that's what bliss. I call that, heavenly bliss. It's just, it felt like fireworks going off. And that's kind of what the plaza looks like. And behind it's the park, where a lot of people meet their friends and family after they pass over. They meet them there. And then you go into healing on the side, and then you go to rest on the other side. And these are renditions. They're not actually what I saw, but the point is what I see for the buildings there. And they're buildings. They're actually real, actual, tangible, solid buildings. They're going to be, I think, subjective. And so everybody's going to see what their brain translates what they're seeing. And so this is just just for fun to give you know. But the plaza is these places are there. The plaza is there, and the park is there, and I mean everybody that takes any of the courses finds the park. You know, they go, well, that's the park. You know, and that's the oh yeah, that's the healing center. And that, now I've been to there's a library there. The Akashic Library is there. There is one there. I think there are many Akashic libraries actually, but there's one in this area called 27. And there's a lot of things. The planning center is there. So when you reincarnate, you can go back into this. There's places in this vibratory region that you go and plan your life with your guides and help from other people. But this night was a very high energy night, and I was really just blasting away in bliss. And Yogananda, so this is, I did mention the soul retrieval. I did the course on soul retrieval. And so what happens is sometimes souls get stuck in regions that they don't make it to 27. Everybody needs to get here. And so I see soul retrieval as basically like a little escort service. That's all. It's like a taxi service thing. So I go down and pick up souls in 22 or 23 because they didn't make it. Most often it's people that don't believe anything because they don't know that there's anything after that, or they died of a drug overdose or suicide. So they were in a very, let's say, clouded or they weren't clear at all when they left, and they weren't conscious. And so they're usually when I pull them out of there, they're in kind of a stupor. And so I basically do soul retrieval every night and bringing in people that have passed over that just didn't make it to this area. And so it's just bringing them from one region to the other. The animals can travel, obviously. Human souls can travel very easily. They just don't know. These guys that we do the soul retrieval on don't know where to go. That's all. They're just a little lost. Not in danger, just lost. But this night, Yogananda had a little surprise for me. And I said, okay, let's go. Where are we going? And he didn't say. It was like his big old grin on his face and takes me by the hand. And Michael shows up. Michael's an angel that I often use for protection and traveling. If I'm traveling someplace I don't know. But Michael and Yogananda were both there. And we headed back towards Earth. And I knew we were coming back to Earth. I don't usually retrieve off Earth. I usually retrieve from the other vibratory realms. But I wanted, it was a total surprise. I didn't know what was going on. So we ended up in, I don't know if you guys remember, the fire was, I think they called it the campfire, or it was that little town in Northern California, Paradise. Ended up on this deserted street, walking down the street. With totally deserted, nobody's there because the town's totally burned out. It was shocking. And we stood at the end of the street, and Yogananda took off one way and Michael took off another. And I see this sort of a net, a mesh thing, sort of invisible, but not, I perceived it as being there. And then Yogananda called in a couple more angels, and we actually swept the entire forest for the souls. So I just have these like representation of the souls of all the little animals that died. Everything from mountain lions to birds to deer, rodents, all of them. We just picked them all up, and they would have eventually made it to 15 on their own, but we just sort of helped them. So basically gathered them in this big old sack and then took them up to 15. And let them go so they get to their destination quicker. And so when we're doing there, right towards the end, this mountain lion comes out of when we release the sack. There's one here of us we're kind of dumping letting the animals out, where they turn, where to me at that point, they gained form. They hadn't had form here. They were just looked like little orbs when they were in 3D. Their little spirits had orbs. But this guy jumps out of the mesh, and at that time I'd never seen anything but I was still seeing black in 15, and I said, I wonder what's going on. So the next day I followed the mountain lion, and the next thing I was in the mountain lion. seeing through the mountain lion's eyes and running through the forest, which was a very, very interesting experience, let me tell you. And we ran through this forest, and he jumps up a tree and then surveys his kingdom, his new kingdom below. And I just said, like, wow. I mean, I couldn't make that up. I just couldn't. Wouldn't have thought of it. I don't think my brain is that creative. But at the end, a little guy came out. His name was Bo. Was like a front porch dog down in Paradise, and its other kitten. And Bo is very active now. I couldn't resist. I still taking dogs back and forth. So collecting more, getting rid of them, giving them to people, getting them new homes, and but so he's got a new, and he's busy working all the time. He's always escorting people around. But there's a little later to tell you, what happens when pets with euthanasia. A friend of mine had this little dog. Her name was Poppy. And Poppy had a great life. And she was a very, very old dog. And my friend, she got very sick, I think had kidney failure and stuff. And my friend put her down and, sent me a text saying, "Oh, I'm so sorry, I lost Poppy." And I thought, oh, I'll look for her, I'll see if I can find her in Pet Heaven. And I went up to check on her and she wasn't there. And I thought, wonder where the heck she is. So I went down, and so I found Poppy floating over Irvine, and like scooped her up and took her back to Pet Heaven. And then I started to leave her, and then, oh, I can't leave her. So she's another addition to the family, but she now has the story moves on, and she now has Yogananda, by the way, took a huge liking to this little dog. So, and she got attached to him as well. So one of my jobs was I ended up with 9 cats and 6 dogs, and I'm thinking, wait, and I'm doing soul retrieval every single night. I'm going, I don't have time. I don't have time to take care of, to give love to all these pets. So this is an image of my dad, who I found him on the golf course. And I took 2 of the dogs to my dad, and I took one other dog to my deceased husband. And so they're all kind of spread around, and they're doing well. And I got myself down. So I only had 1 dog, but then the dogs keep arriving. So I'm still back up to 4, I think 4 dogs and 9 cats up there. I never had 9 cats here, but I do there. But the thing is, you don't have to feed them, or you don't have to clean litter boxes. So it's pretty easy. Okay. So this is a story gets pretty interesting here. This little guy was Buffy, was one of my dogs that got hit by a car. He was only 8 months old. It just broke my heart. And I didn't have to, after him, I didn't have a dog for like 10 years. I just couldn't do it. But I thought, why isn't Buffy here? And I went down to 15 one night looking for Buffy. And I found him, he came out when, they all come, they can hear, it's telepathic. So he comes out into the blackness. And I said, well, you want to come back with me to 27 and be with all the other pets? And the guy hung his head and basically looked sad and basically said no. And I went, wow, what? You don't want to come with me? Anyway, so he turned around and looked over his shoulder, like, follow me. And so he led me through what I call the veil here. And so this is in 15, where all the animals, I found all of them in this black area. And then we walked through, it's like, I don't know, a few hundred feet. And there was this area, bright, sunlit, and a park. And there were all these children in there. And I was like, what the heck is going on here? Why are these kids in Focus 15 where the animals are? So Buffy had attached himself to a little boy here named Frankie. So I made it my project that night to take Frankie and Buffy up, because I knew these kids had to get to 27. They can't grow and move on from here. You have to go through the process. You've got to go through the reception and healing and rest, and then you'll have a life in the astral, and then at some point when you're ready, you come back. So I took Frankie and Buffy up, And then night after night, from that point on, almost all of my retrievals were retrieving kids out of this area in 15. But I would some nights take as many as 50 of these kids out at one time. I mean, not one, maybe multiple trips, but I would clean out the whole thing, and then the next night I'd come back and they were there again, more. And it was going on, and this was going on for months and months and months on end, that the kids were just coming, and I'm thinking, where are all these children coming from? And why are all these kids dying? And by the way, all this is pre-COVID, okay? And of course, the kids didn't die of COVID anyway. But it was shocking to me because I couldn't understand. And I took a long, long time before I got answers of who these kids are. Actually, I finished writing the book before I found out the whole story of who these kids are. But initially, what I learned, that the children that were in 15 that have been retrieved out of there originally were animals they're on their first human incarnation, and they were very, very young when they died. And so they had never, they were too young, most of them, to even learn about heaven or learn. They didn't know where to go. So they went back to the place they knew, which is the place where animals were. And they had a little colony there, this little colony of kids. It's pretty shocking. And you think, why wouldn't somebody come and get them? There didn't seem to be anything in place to move them on. And Yogananda told me that, he said, well, they would eventually. He said, it's about being curious and then move on. But now we have a way to speed all this up. And so the soul retrieval is really a key part of helping, speed up this whole process of their incarnations and their growth. So we're cleaning them out, and I am daily, but now I have help doing it, because after a while it was like, it was mind-boggling, the number of kids. But I will later explain who those kids were, and some of you might be able to connect the dots and figure out why there were so many of them. So this is taking the kids the kids love to play with the dogs, and this is the plaza again, in the reception area with the park behind, and taking the kids into 27 and just getting them on track. And so there's little Frankie. And so I went, after a while I stopped, naming the kids and all that, because it was too many. There were so many of them. This is another an image of a little Klikai, a friend of mine, neighbor up the street, had this little girl, and this little 3-year-old Klikai just dropped dead one day, and it was just tragic. She was a beautiful dog, and my friend, wanted me to see if, knew about the book that I was working on and what I did with the pets, and wanted me to find this little dog. So I went and found her, and I was leaving her in 15 again. And then, then I'm a softie, and I went, okay, I can't leave her in 15, but I can't have her because I already have too many pets where I am, and I don't even have time to deal with them now. So I found her a foster mom, another soul who has a house in 27. There are other houses in 27, not a lot, but like I said, I've kind of come to the conclusion that everybody that has a house, there are people that are working there all the time. I believe they're living. I believe they're still in their body here, like I am. I don't think they're passed over. They're basically working souls that are helping transition people that are, when they leave Earth. So anyway, this is Margaret Wang with little Klikai Mavis. So Mavis has a home, and I see Mavis occasionally, but she's pretty busy. She's got a life, and so Margaret picked her up, and they just went on from there. But Mavis trots out now and again, and I see her, and sometimes she hangs out with the other dogs. So it's kind of a fun thing. I've found them all. There's never been a pet that I've looked for. The consciousness is easy, and it's really interesting how it's very easy to communicate too. It's all telepathic. That's just sort of a kind of a rough image of the park. And this is a place where, we've often heard, when you meet people, when you pass over. So when people come into reception, a lot of times their friends and family are waiting for them here, and they take a little walk in the park and visit. And but it's very interesting that this park does seem to, I mean, it exists, and it exists not just me, but everybody that has done, done the courses and done the study. Basically, even people that haven't done the Monroe courses have found this place. The park is a real energetic spot. It's pretty interesting. And actually, that mountain behind is, I mean, that's my interpretation of it. Okay. The mountain behind, though, is sort of a center of collective. And it's a little difficult to explain, but a lot of times, like when I go out, I go in to go out, because I think we actually have a portal inside our head. I think our pineal gland is like a portal to go out, where a lot of people in out of body stuff, they want to lie in their bed and then float up and then look at them, like float on the ceiling and then look at themselves down. But when I go out to go these places, when I travel astrally, I go inside to go out. And it's very interesting because somehow this collective, it's inside the mountain, but it's like going in, it gets bigger. So it's a little difficult to explain, but I think I do a better job in the book than telling you here. But that's an interesting place, because if you want to just go kind of get out of body, get even out of light body, out of everything, and just sort of blend in source, just like swim. You can just like swim in there and be with the collective energy. And it's a very liberating feeling, very freeing, and just it's lovely. And you get an inspiration. And I believe this is where our collective consciousness comes from, and our the ideas that today I have a thing. I listen to different podcasts and people that are sharing spiritual ideas, and totally unrelated people are coming up with the same information. And I think there's an awareness grid, and I think it comes from this collective consciousness, that we're all tapping into information, that a lot of people are getting the same information, same downloads from source. And I think it's coming from here. So the third course that I took with Monroe was called Exploration 27. And though I'd been to 27 and farther out to 35 many times, many times, there was a lot about 27 that I didn't know, and I wanted to learn about it. And as I made a pact with myself, a promise that I would take these courses, and I want to fly before I can crawl, that kind of thing. And I said, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to take it step by step and learn it the proper way. And so this is an image from that week. So that little dog Poppy, who was floating over Irvine, there's Poppy there. This is her dad. So the first night of the course, I got a text from my friend saying she brought her husband Ward home from the hospital, and he was going on hospice. And we thought and she thought he'd have about 6 months to live. And somebody in the class had mentioned that there was the Monroe has tapes and CDs and stuff on called pre-death transitioning. And I thought, well, that's great. That's a great idea. I said, maybe I'll take Ward with me a few times up to 27, so that Ward can just get, know the way. And so I would take him up during the day and then take him back, when the end of the last class. And in the day, my mom, this is my backyard in 27, my mom decided to come and stay at my house, bring her dog. And there's Anna. This Anna woke up the first day of 27. This was one of my soul retrievals, who was a friend, who's actually the first mother of my dog that I have now. And she left, when she passed away, she left her dog to me. So, but she was kind of not a suicide, but she was she had never made it through the process. So I took her through, and she was the first person that ever woke up from she was one of the first soul retrievals I did, and she was one of the first ones that woke up, probably almost a year after I did the soul retrieval on her. But so she was awake, and she and mom knew each other. So they were both staying in my house while I was doing the Exploration 27. And Ward, I was taking up there day after day. And Ward is super sociable, and mom's a party animal, and Anna's a party animal. And they all like to hang out and party and talk and goof around. And it's very much like being on Earth. I mean, because they're just everything's pretty much the same. So as the week went on, towards the end of the week ended, and I got back. And so this image is on Thursday, because what happens is the Friday morning you catch the bus, you go back to the airport, and you come home. So the course ended on Thursday. So this image is on the Thursday. When I got home, there's a lot more to this story, with the monkey. That's another one. But when I got home, I spoke to my friend the next day, the Saturday. I flew home on Friday, and Saturday I talked to my friend whose husband this was, and she says, "Oh, Ward passed away on Thursday." Oh, what? Ward was with me. Actually, that's the thing, is I hadn't taken him back the last day because I was so busy. He was there, but I had taken him in the morning, and I was on East Coast time, Virginia time, and they're out West Coast. And she says, "Yeah, she told me the time that he passed away." And I went, "Oh my God, he was with me. He was with me. He wasn't in his body." So this is really interesting, you guys. He wasn't in his body. His consciousness was with me in 27 when his body died. And she said that he had a really rough passing. And I said, "No, he really didn't. He was having a drink on my back patio when he passed. He was in good shape." So it's not, so much of what the trauma that we build around this stuff, it's not what we think it is. It's a lot gentler. It's a lot sweeter. And Ward's a great example. So he's sitting there with his dog on his lap, having a drink on my back patio, and he's fine. And then I went back the next day, the Saturday, or no, actually it was the Friday or something. And no, I'm getting my dates mixed up here. I've got it right in the book. But anyway, I guess the Saturday I went back and checked on him, and took him, and then I took him in. I said, "Hey, you're gonna have to, go through the drill here. You got to go to the healing center and take your rest." And he's still sleeping at this point. And my mom actually had slept for 4 years. She promised me we were going to be in touch when she passed away back in 2014. And I didn't hear from her, and didn't, because we were very open spiritually and spoke about these things. And she promised my brother and I we'd be in touch. And it was years. And I was really losing hope. I was disappointed. And it wasn't until about 2018, and actually just before I started the Monroe Institute stuff, that I started seeing her in dreams again. So she was awake. But it's a long time. The sleep time is different. Some people, it's, my husband, it was 4 months, and for my mom it was 4 years. And Ward, we don't know. Anna was about a year. So, but it depends on how much soul trauma we have and how much we need to work out, how much rest we actually need. But this image is interesting too, because that last day I picked up it was habit to stop in 15, and this little monkey was sitting there, and her name was Samantha. And I had been asking for the entire time I started these out of body things I've been asking Yogananda, what happens to the animal souls? And so this little one clung to me. I dropped her off in the morning, came back later on. She hangs on again. This time she won't let go. So the class is taking off, and I'm running like crazy, trying to keep up with everybody, because a lot of this Exploration 27 course, they're group courses where we actually go out of body together. So that's really interesting, because it is a personal experience, but we're actually meeting up out of body in these places, which is pretty fun. Anyway, so Samantha clings, and we ended the course was taking us to the planning center. And before I know it, we turned around and we were planning Samantha's life. So all this stuff happens and it's not conscious in my mind. I'm not creating it because I had no idea. First of all, I didn't know we could because nobody told me you could plan an animal's life. And I'd never been to the planning center. So I went to the planning center with the class and she's hung around my neck and we're planning her life. And she was going to become a human. So here's the transmigration of the soul. This little monkey was going to become a human girl with a family, an Amish family in Iowa is what we chose. So she would have a very protected, she had a very rough life, this little monkey down in Mexico. She had a very, very rough life. I met her once in 1981, had a photograph taken with her. And it was interesting was when I saw her in 15, I knew immediately who it was. Though it's not something I thought about her ever between 1981 and 2019, 2018, whenever this was. But anyway, so we planned her life and she's, I don't know, she's sleeping. I don't know if she's woken up yet and moved into the body, but that's the plan when it happens. So animals can migrate into human gradually, as you saw the children, they had been animals. This one was an animal that was going to migrate into being human. So, consciousness is all comes from source and it's all very similar. It's just goes through stages of advancement.
Okay, Alison, are you ready to take questions and answers now?
Well, I mean, you guys can read the book. There's a little bit more to it. Okay, so yeah, if anybody's got questions.
I have a question about the images, the pictures that we saw.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
How did those pictures happen? Do you have an artist friend, or
Yeah,
are you an artist? Or
no, I sketched them all because they were from my mind. They're what I saw, but I had 5 artists. I have 5 different artists that did. That's why some of the styles were a little bit different.
Okay.
But yeah, I had artists in Ukraine. The best one was from the Ukraine. And then I had one, the guy that did the cat, the first one, he was really good too. The black cat, the white cat sitting, he was from Kenya. He did a number of those. I had a woman in Poland, guy in Cyprus. Yeah, they're all over the world, but it was really fun. I really enjoyed doing the images. But I thought, a picture's worth 1,000 words. And I think being able to show somebody pictures of what it looks like, because we hear about this stuff, we've heard about it, but nobody ever shows you what it looks like. And again, I will qualify, this is what it looked like to me. And if you saw it, it might look slightly different, or your interpretation of it might be different because it's subjective. But at least you have something to say, hey, look, this is what I saw. So
very interesting. Thank you.
Yeah, great.
Does your husband enjoy your animals as well in heaven?
Oh, he's got Becky. Yeah. They're inseparable. He spends his life playing golf and he lives across from a golf course. And he's a story in there because he didn't believe anything at all. And frankly, he was one of these people who was never sick. And he didn't believe anything. And then he passed away pretty unexpectedly. And he hadn't, he hung around for about 4 months. And I finally had to, he was actually my very first soul retrieval, but we're talking in 2002. But I contacted a psychic because I didn't know what to do with him. He was basically a ghost. He was a ghost. He was not leaving. And I could feel him like a little balloon attached to me everywhere I went. He was not going, he was with me all the time. And I said, okay, well, you're going to have to move on because I don't think this is going to work out very well. So I did. She said, well, create a place that you think he'd like to be. So I made him a house with a sweeping lawn and right on a body of water with a dock and a big boat at the end of the dock. I said, oh, he'll like that. And then a golf course across the street, and he plays golf with his buddies, and he's there, and he's still there, and he's still there. And my dad's next door. So, it's called a consensus environment, and he and his golf buddies are all there together. And It's not bad. It's pretty nice life, actually. But he has the dog. Yes, he has Becky. He loves Becky. And yeah, takes her on the golf course, just like my dad takes the other dogs on the golf course. So they're having
Does he ever communicate with you? I mean, every day?
Oh yeah,
or
oh yeah, all the time, all the time. I frankly wish he wouldn't. I'm like, I'm sorry, get a life, dude. Get a life.
Does he help you with your situations or
No, he
not?
doesn't. He doesn't. He hasn't gotten there yet. But my mom moved from 25 to 27, that's part of the end of the story, is that she, after the, is that I didn't finish because we went to questions, but she actually moved to 27 and built a house next to me. And so all the little ones are there, and they're teaching them and finding them basically foster homes, because most of those kids don't have soul families. The ones that were animals didn't have, a lot of them didn't have soul families. Some did, but most didn't. So they're having to like kind of set them up with new families, and we're teaching them to remember. But that's part of the story in the book, and it's pretty. That's a big deal, actually.
Okay.
So yeah,
Thank
my
you.
mom helps. Oh, my mom helps. My grandparents have stepped in, and my dad's siblings, my uncle, 2 uncles, and an aunt. And frankly, I was really, really surprised when I found them working, because they weren't particularly philanthropic here. I didn't see that kind of, help to others here. But it's really, it's great because we can progress. Even when we're out of body, our consciousness can grow. And I think what they're doing, which is excellent, because, we're all moving towards the 5th dimension. And, in 5th dimension, our focus is going to be service to others. So to see them helping out up there, which is great, takes a lot of the burden off me. Hallelujah. So that they're helping, and helping move the process along, and helping do the soul retrieval as well from any of the other kids that are coming into the area back in 15.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
I have just a quick question, if I could.
Sure.
So my question was, because I felt like it kind of, you left this kind of hanging out there for us to think about, was the children in the park.
Oh,
Where do they come from?
Can I say it? Am I going to get in trouble if I say it? Those kids are from the Dumbs. Anybody know about the Dumbs?
No.
Dumbs. Okay. Well, if you don't know about it, then we probably won't go into it. But yeah, you will be finding out about it if you don't know about it. Yeah, there's Dumbs. There's a very sad situation here. There's a very sad human trafficking situation that's been going on, evidently in the United States, 800,000 kids a year. So, and I didn't, as I said, when I started doing the soul retrieval, I didn't know that. I didn't know about that, and I didn't know where the kids came from. But I have since learned that that's where they came after I finished writing the book. So there's actually an addendum in it, like a postscript at the end of the book, explaining where the kids come from. But yeah, it's in the book.
Okay, thank you.
They're okay. And you know what? Here's the deal, you guys. There's no victims. There's no victims anywhere. Every soul before we come into this life that we take has a soul contract, and we know what our life is going to be ahead of time. And if it's hard, we know it's hard because we chose it to be hard. And so you think, well, these are little kids, or they were animals or whatever, but they knew. And I look at the situation with those kids is that they had maybe 10 or 20 or 100 or even 1,000 lifetimes of hardship packed into a very short life. And so when they come back, they're going to be much more evolved because of their very short experience, but they're also going to have a lot of compassion, and they're going to be an important part of society when they reincarnate.
And that actually brings up another question. I'm sorry. Thanks for bringing that to my mind, because when you were talking about planning a life
Mhm.
For the monkey that was a person, was going back as a little girl. Because I guess I always thought that you got to pick your own path. Not that there was a consensus or a group of people that were picking your path if you
Well,
were coming back.
we have guides, and then there's people that can, and there's like I won't say a committee, but there, you can have help. I mean, and somebody like Samantha, the little monkey's name is Samantha. Samantha, probably didn't have the mental capacity to make a lot of those decisions on her own the first time. So, I mean, I think as we become more evolved human consciousness, then we basically make these decisions. I mean, I know it's done with help of guides too, though, because there's a lot of things we wouldn't even think of ourselves. So this is a big process. It's not something you say, oh, well, you're just going to go back and do that. No, there's a long process of studying of what the possibilities and actually it's very kind of odd sounding, but there's actually ways to actually sort of even try on a body, basically what your, a prototype of what your body can look like and what you're going to be. So you know what it is going in. It's it's interesting to say.
You mentioned something about the future, like, so do you know the pet's future or yourself's future?
No, there you can do that in 15. You can actually go and people can, you can see the future in 15. I don't do it. I
Okay.
guess I really didn't want, I mean, I've seen a glimpse of a possibility of a future for myself. But it's just a scene. I have a scene. But I haven't spent a lot of time because I don't know. I guess I'm happy to let it unfold as it does. And I know my
Explore.
higher self is definitely, in control. So I don't have the need to look at it. I have gone past past lives a few times. I've tried to change the past. Haven't managed. I haven't figured out how to do that. But yeah, the future. Well, we're going into 5D is what's happening, and that's going to be very exciting for everybody. That's going to be an amazing. We're going to leave 3D behind, and I'll say good riddance. 5D is going to be incredible. Better for everybody.
So do you spend a lot of time? I mean, does this vision or that you go to 27, does it take a long time to get there, or is it seconds?
Well, when you do the hemisync, Monroe does, it's like a guided thing, and he'll guide you up through all the different levels, and he could take like 10 minutes to get there. But I learned very early on that once you sort of develop this consciousness muscle, we'll call it a muscle. Once you develop that ability, it's instant. You go, okay, I'm going to 27, boom, you just walk in. So it's basically your transportation is instantaneous between places. I mean, I can instantaneously go to 35 or Uranialoka. I can instantaneously go to 27 or 15 or anywhere. It's just by thinking it. And that's actually, it's the beginning of it actually is an illustration of the beginning of our ability to bilocate, which is we're all going to, and like I said, all this stuff that I do, every human on the earth is capable of doing this. There's nothing special about me. The only thing I did was I went to school and I learned how to do it and I practiced. That's it. It's like saying, okay, I'm going to learn how to play the piano. Well, great. You can sit down and you can make noise, or you can work at it for years and become a concert pianist. But if you want to be really great, you've got to practice. And that's the only difference between me and anybody else. So if you make up your mind you want to do this, to find your pets, which, heaven's sakes, I highly encourage you guys to go find them, because it's liberating. It's wonderful to see your pets again. It's wonderful to see your family who've passed over, your parents, or whoever, friends. that have left early. You know, it's wonderful to see these people, and they're very, very real, very tangible. I mean, physically tangible. They're different. It's a different density. So, but you still have a body. And
Do they
so, yeah, go
do they
look.
say do they say things to you, or do you
Oh yeah, we
subconsciously-
talk.
Okay.
We talk, but I have to say, you don't get into very much. It's more. Well, there's the communication seems to be mostly telepathic,
Right.
but it's a lot of kind of mostly like emotional communication.
Yeah, because you mentioned your mother hugged you. So
Oh yeah, hugs, sure. Like I said, I can pick up the pets. I can
Mhm.
hug somebody. I can pick up the pets and feel the fur, feel the the skeleton under the fur. So it's real. I mean, it's tangible. It's not just the perceptions of it, but it actually is tangible. And we all have multiple bodies, but our bodies are just different densities. So we have our physical body here in this very dense 3D world that we live in. And when we get out of here, we still have more layers of body, the light bodies. And those light bodies are still real. It's like, say, if you were a 6th density being, you could still have a body. We have a lot more capabilities in these finer density bodies, like where you can walk through walls or, or fly or whatever, but it's still actually a certain physicality to it.
yeah, you hear people say, well, next time I come back, I'll be a butterfly. So would that happen?
Oh, you can do anything.
Okay.
You want to be a butterfly, you can be a butterfly in 27. You want to be a tree? You want to be a
Okay.
flower? You want to be, I mean, I joke with my friend Oriel, who say, I said, you can make flowers sing.
Right.
Yeah, so our limitations when we're in these other realms are really only in our mind. So it's about, what can you imagine things can be? And that's it. We have almost unlimited, we're all going to be finding out in coming years that we have amazing capabilities as humans, that we are very, very special. All of us are very special. I don't know if you know this. Did you know that hue, the word hue, is another word for God?
No.
Okay, so we are hue man. Now you just need to let that sink in. We have capabilities. Yeah, we are hue man. We are God man. That's what that means. We have capabilities that would blow all of our mind. I mean, I'm only finding the tip of the iceberg. I'm just so excited for what I'm hoping to learn in the future. I mean, there's so much stuff coming, and in the next year, the next year is going to be really interesting, and more and more and more is opening up, and we're going to learn so much, and it's all really exciting. So,
the origin of the word hue?
I'm not sure. I'm not sure if it's galactic origin. I've heard the word hue in there's a religion that uses the word hue as instead of Om. They say Om is like you chant Om a lot of times is it's a connection with God. Well, they chanted hue. I learned that from Eckankar has that, but so I'm not sure what language exactly, but I suspect it was probably a galactic language, not an Earth language. But that's what we are as hue, and mankind mankind was created hybrids from. There's humans, there's full humans, and then there's mankind. Did you ever wonder why there's a difference between human and mankind? They're not actually the same. That's why we find a lot of people are not exactly the same, because there's a whole lot of us all mixed up down here.
That's very interesting, Alison. I have a question about the guides. Do you have information as to who they are, and is there a hierarchy or anything
Guides?
about these guides?
Yeah,
You mentioned guides.
well, Yogananda is my guide, and But because I accept Yogananda as my guru, back in like 1991, something like that. And the word guru actually means one who leads from darkness to light. And frankly, that's what a guide is. But we all have guides. We all have guides, angels, all of that stuff. And by the way, angels are all very real, very, very real. It's just you just basically, I would say, if you don't know who your guide is or your angels, who those helpers are, because we have helpers, I would just meditate and call them in and say, hey, will you make yourself known to me? Tell me who you are. And you'll get names. And they'll make themselves known, because we have help. We have, and by the way, we have all the help we want. Lots. So, and they're there and they're waiting. Most of them are waiting for us to ask if you don't know who they are. What the Monroe Institute actually had, the second course, which I didn't bother taking that because I already knew who my guides were, but it's called Guidelines. And so it takes you from the gateway course into the next level of traveling, and getting more help from your out of body family, so to speak.
Okay, thank you.
Welcome.
I'm just wondering, on any of those vibrational realms, the different levels, the different numbers, are any of them what I guess we would be considered to be a bad place, like where there's unrest and unhappiness?
No, well, most of it, no. Most of it, I would say there isn't anything to be afraid of anywhere. I do a lot of, if you get the book, if you read the book, you'll see I do a lot of my soul retrieval out of 22. We weren't trained to do 22. I just ended up going there by accident. The Monroe Institute trained us with lifelines to retrieve out of 23. And 23 is just people that didn't believe anything. But 22, I think I'd been going there for really years in my dreams. And it's kind of a darkish, gray, kind of a gray. To me, it's a little depressing. It's not scary. It's just there's not a lot of light there. But that's where I found, I think, people that had committed suicide and died with Alzheimer's, people that were confused, very confused when they died. They just get stuck there. And again, it's not really scary. There's not really any danger to it. It's just sort of dreary, and it's not a happy, it's not a super happy place. But as far as anything that's scary, no. And there is a vibratory region. It's actually in 25. That's, basically hell is there because it's part of the belief territories. But, I had one lady a friend of mine, a very dear friend of mine's mother was a staunch Catholic and believed like anything she was going to go to hell. I'm like, and she was a good person. She was a nice person. And she wasn't going to hell. So when she passed away, my friend told me that she had died. And so I basically whipped in really fast. I mean, within like an hour of her passing, and I got a hold of her and I said, okay, come on, we're gonna take a little trip. And so we went by. It was, matter of fact, it's the only time I've seen it because I intended to go look at it. But other than that, I've never even come across anything that looked like hell. But we went by, we looked in, I said, see that? You're not going there. And we went to 27 and got her, managed in the right fashion.
But these souls probably have it within them without help to progress. I would imagine.
Most people do. Most people will get there. Not everybody. But again, if you don't believe that if you don't believe the place exists, then you're not going to go looking for it. So that's part of it, is if you know it's there, then great, you know where to go. So it's like, You look at the book, or you've listened to me now, and if you believe me, I'm saying 27 exists. I'm going, great, we're going to 27. We're going to go get healing. We're going to get sleep, and then we're going to move on from there. And that it's there. But a lot of people don't know it's there, so they don't even know where to go, and then they get stuck.
Right.
But
Perfect
relatives that have already passed over can retrieve. Angels can, guides can. I mean, and again, I'm assuming most of the people that have to be retrieved don't have guides, or their family hasn't. My best friend from high school committed suicide in like 1988, and I never dreamed about her. And I think she was stuck in 22 for a really long time. But I believe it was shortly before I started doing this. I think her mother passed away, and I think her mother retrieved her out of 22. That's sort of the info that I got after I did finally catch up with her.
If a soul has an ability to communicate with us, like I have a dog that was my soulmate. She passed away 8 years ago, and she's the reason for my spiritual awakening. And she's communicated with me, off and on. Does that mean they're at do they have to be at a specific level in order to be able to communicate with us?
No, I don't think so. I think that I think your dog, your dog is. I think a lot of pets are I guess maybe they're at different levels like we are too. But I imagine your dog's at a good level, and just, I mean, obviously she must have. Who knows? Maybe your dog was an angel all along. Because if she got you to awaken spiritually, and she's communicating with you, yeah. It could be. We don't know. I mean, there's so many things, mysteries that we don't have the answers to.
Right. Oh, okay. Oh, you've answered all my questions. Thank you very much.
But go look for her. Go look for your doggie. It's really easy.
I want to. I'm trying. Is it?
It's very, very easy. There's a couple of things. So when you do it, is you get yourself. It's very simple. It's mind awake before you go to sleep at night. So you get your body to go to sleep. Turn off all the senses of the body, just like consciously turn off your feet, your hands, turn it off so you feel nothing in your body. And your mind is wide awake, totally awake. And then you set an energy protection bubble. You put a little protection bubble around you. Just all you do is by intending this stuff happens, it's real. Okay. And then create an intention that you want to find your pet, and say, I'm going to find doggy, and you go find doggy. And the thing is, as I'm telling you, it's very close. In other words, where they are is very, very astrally, it's very close to where you are. You don't have to travel very far. And you as I said, you probably just see black right in the beginning, but the pets come out, and if you call them, just mentally call out to them, and they'll come out. My parting words to everybody is that I am not special in any way. I just made the effort to learn how to do it, and I practiced a lot. And everybody, we all humans have the capability of doing this. So if it's something that you like, you want to find your pets, I mean, and I know pets are a big driver, then go for it. Go find your pets. I mean, and you don't have to have specific training, but the book actually does take you through a lot of stuff. And then I reference in the back of the book some other places, some other things you can read that might help you if you didn't want to take it. But I will highly recommend any of the Monroe courses, because they're going to change your life. It's also one of the best vacations I ever had. It's completely restful. All your meals are prepared. It's great. It's great. So it is. It's the most wonderful vacation. So it's like a week-long trip, but it's fun, and you're learning something. So thank you. I really, I'm happy to be part of your group, because I'm part of your club. I have to say, I don't come out a lot during the flu season, because I have a really impaired immune system. So from cancer, still dealing with that. But so this was perfect for me to be able to do this on Zoom. And then when you guys start having some meetings after we get through the flu season, then I will come and join you in person.
Thank you, Allison. It's been a great experience this whole hour.
All right, you guys, you take care.